Ladies and gentlemen, it is time. This is a massive moment because AJ alluded to earlier. This is the first time I'm getting a chance to chat with an author of a book that I actually got to experience. A lot of people come on this show pitching a bunch of different shit. I'm sure it's all great. I ain't read a single page of any of them. I ain't never seen a single movie or show of any of them. This particular author, this particular American badass is one that provided great entertainment not only for me, but for millions and millions of people worldwide with the hit series Terminalist on Amazon. He's an author of 5 books. I'm not sure if there's another one on the way, but we can fucking hope. 20 years as a Navy SEAL, an absolute stallion of life. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Commander Jack Carr. Yeah! What's up, dude?
How's it going? How are you guys?
Hey, fucking good, dude. Boom! We're talking to you, man. I am so thankful you're here.
I'm so fired up. I'm fired up. I heard someone just told me, they texted me, and they said that you are an avid reader. So I was so excited to come on and talk to you.
Jack, listen, I don't want to disrespect you here early because I have seen and heard about what you have done to others that have done as such. I've never read a book in my life. I read that your mother was a librarian. Do you think that's why you got so into books? Because normally the super creative types aren't the type that can get through buds and maintain a 20-year. You're kind of an anomaly, don't you think? And do you think it's because of your mother's love of reading and such whenever you were a kid?
Oh, yeah. We grew up surrounded by books and a love of reading, so it was as natural as sitting down for dinner or going out to exercise or whatever else. Reading was just a natural part of our lives. And when I got to about 10 years old, that's when I started to read the things my parents were reading, which at the time, that's when Hunt for Red October came out. Nice. And then I started reading all the David Morrell, Nelson DeMille, A.J. Quinnell, J.C. Pollock, Mark Olden, Stephen Hunter, all these guys that were the masters of the thriller genre, because I knew I wanted to be a SEAL one day. And back in the 80s, there wasn't much you could read on special operations. You could read it like in an hour at the library. But then these books, they had protagonists, they had main characters that had that background as Marine snipers, Army Special Forces, Navy SEALs, CIA paramilitary. So I thought, hey, these authors, these guys like Tom Clancy must have done their research, so I'm going to get a little information from these books. And then I just fell in love with them and knew that after my time in the military, I'd write thrillers. So that was the path, but it all stemmed from that foundation of reading, of that love of reading.
Pretty good journey, Jack. I think you did okay. Boom! This thing's a fucking great book, as is the entire series. Go ahead, AJ.
How did the whole process come about of the show happening, especially with Chris Pratt? I know you have a relationship with that guy, Taylor Kitsch. Everybody in the show is unbelievable. Like, casted very, very well. But you and Chris Pratt, I know you guys have a special bond, it seems like.
Yeah, he's great. So as I was writing, I sat down to write this thing, and being a child of the 80s, it's very natural just to pick your actor, pick your director as you sit down to write, and no one knows who you are. You haven't sold one book. That just seemed very natural to me. So I had just seen this guy, Chris Pratt, play a character in Zero Dark 30, a very small role in the movie about the hunt for bin Laden. And he played a Navy SEAL. And he was also in this show called Parks and Rec, where he was kind of like an overweight, funny guy. And I saw that transformation. I saw that transformation of him from this kind of fat comic guy into this operator. And he was inherently likable. You just liked this guy. So as I'm typing away, I think he will play my main character, James Reese. And Chris hadn't been in Guardians of the Galaxy, had not been in Avengers, had not been in Jurassic World. So he had not had that rise to A-list prominence yet. But he's the guy that I wanted. And then I also wanted Antoine Fuqua to direct. I loved Training Day and Tears of the Sun and all that. And so I thought this is a perfect guy to direct. And now we have Chris and Antoine as executive producers along with me. But the way Chris got the book is a buddy called me out of the blue in November of 2017, and I hadn't talked to him in 5 years, buddy from the SEAL teams. And he first asked if I remembered him, which I did. And then he said, hey, do you remember what you did for me in the SEAL teams? And I did not. And he said, hey, you're the only person that as I was getting out, you sat me down in your office, talked to me about transitioning to the private sector. You introduced me to people in the private sector, and you followed up with me to see how things were going. I've never forgotten it. I always wanted to thank you. And I kind of said, no problem. How's it going? And he said, it's going great, but I heard you wrote a book. And I said, yeah, it's coming out in about 5 months. I can send you a rough draft, though, if you'd like to see it. And he said, yeah, but I'd like to give it to a friend of mine. I think my best friend would like to read it. And I said, who's that? And he said, Chris Pratt. And I thought, well, that's convenient, because as I wrote this thing, I had him in mind. So Jared gave it to Chris. Chris read it in December of 2017 and called the first week in January of 2018 to option it. And then off we went to the races. So,
everything you've been through, you believe the universe put that together there?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like I didn't expect anything back from Jared. I didn't even remember doing it, introducing him to people in the private sector and following up with him and to see how things were going for him. And then, but he never forgot about it. And then years later, he found out I was writing this book and saw an opportunity to help me out as well. But he read it first to make sure it wasn't absolute garbage. Like he read it first before he gave it to Chris. And then he gave it the approval and then gave it to Chris. And now Jared's he plays Boozer in the show, so he's that character Boozer. He's a producer and a technical advisor on it as well. So he was there every day on set, as was Max Adams, who's an Army Ranger, and then my buddy Ray Mendoza of War Office Productions. Those three guys were on there every day on set to make sure it didn't get too Hollywood.
That's okay. So that's what I was about to say, getting too Hollywood. So you have your hands on with the Prime thing. I assume that was just a part of the deal that you made with them. I would like to be a part of it. Like, whenever Lone Survivor came out, he was there, right? Every single day, I think, while they were filming that with Mark Wahlberg to try to make it as realistic as possible, because I do feel like you guys have an innate hatred for Hollywood and bullshit. So how much of that, of your time, is taken to, like, editing things out, cutting through stuff, and how hands-on are you with the whole process for Prime?
Yeah, well, usually they like to get rid of the author right away because they don't want the author on set saying, you ruined my vision, that sort of a thing. So usually they just give you a little bit of money and then sideline you. But because it was Chris and we got to know each other over the last couple of years before we started filming, and because it was Antoine and we got to know each other, they want to be involved in that process. So they put me together with a guy called the showrunner, who in series television with multiple directors is like the main point of contact. And we got together and we started writing this initial script. And so I got to be involved with every part of the process, pre-production, production, post-production. But it was really those guys I mentioned before that were there every day, because I had to come back here to Park City, Utah, write my 5th novel. I'm writing the 6th one right now. So I had to do those sorts of things where those guys were on set every day. And because of those friendships, and then because of the trust that Antoine and Chris and the showrunner had with those guys with military experience, that's pretty unusual. And I had multiple people come up to me on set and say they've been a part of hundreds of Hollywood productions. They've never felt this way on a set. They've never seen this level of trust between these senior level executives and technical advisors. And they just thought this was a special thing to be a part of. And they didn't have to come up and tell me that, but so many people did. And you could sense it. You could sense that there was something special going on that wasn't quite what people normally experience in Hollywood.
Yeah, smashing success by all accounts. Everybody that's ever watched it says, damn, this is unbelievable. I assume it's helped the book sales as well. I would also like to add in, you helped Chris Pratt out immensely as well, because my introduction to him, I had not seen Parks and Rec, even though it was filmed here in Indianapolis. I was not a watcher of that or anything else that you chatted about. I was introduced to him in Jurassic World Dominion. And I'll tell you what, that movie was terrible. And I actually said, like, how is this Chris Pratt guy the guy? Because I was sitting next to him at a UFC fight, and all my guys were like, hey, Chris Pratt is the guy. Like, he's the guy. I'm like, I just saw him in Jurassic World Dominion. This guy ain't a guy. I don't know what you're talking about. Then I see him in Terminal List, and I'm like, I want Chris Pratt in everything. Like, literally, like, the entire turn of Chris Pratt in my mind, and I would assume, not everybody else, I'm an absolute doofus, but I love him in there. And I like the fact that you said you were writing for him. It's like a match made in heaven. Now, how much of an onus do you think you put on yourself to showcase what life is like with PTSD? Because I think it's been chatted about, right? I think it's been something that's been talked about. It's been a big time political talking point. It's been a TV talking point. Everybody, oh, we got to take care of these guys. PTSD is a real thing. But we never really get to experience it in any other way other than, I think, just hearing about it. Terminalists, I think, showcase what some guys fucking go through, right? And when you're drawing from people's experiences and writing this character, is there truth in that, or are you just trying to put things together? Because I think it was very important to society to showcase that as well, Jack.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I was trying to do it in a way that made sense for the story. So oftentimes people's experience with these different issues comes through Hollywood, comes through fiction, comes through these different, let's say, commercial avenues, and that's how they experience. Maybe they hear about it on the news here and there, but when you have it in a story and it connects it to someone that now you're connecting with as a reader or as a viewer, then it humanizes it a little bit. So the story isn't only about post-traumatic stress, but it is certainly a large element of it and drives that plot forward, and the people in it are experiencing some of that. Obviously, in the show, we're showing that visually through Chris's memory that he can't quite trust and can't quite put together through this conflation transition. So I thought that was something that drives the novel forward. And obviously, I have, and most people who have went downrange over the last 20 years have personal experience with post-traumatic stress, or those dealing with it, and maybe dealing with it in not the healthiest of ways, maybe getting just pills from the VA, dealing with getting Ambien, drinking, then you have marital problems, maybe you add some drugs to that, sleep issues, the trauma of the battlefield, the physical trauma of the battlefield as well, not just the emotional. And they're dealing with all of that as they're trying to transition out of a profession that they've been part of for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and now try to recreate themselves in the private sector. All that stuff doesn't really lend itself to a successful transition unless you really take a breath and figure things out and make some conscious decisions to deal with these issues. So it is a big part of the show. It's a big part of the books, and it's a big part of our society right now with so many guys dealing with it who went downrange over the last 20 years.
I think it's going to enact some real change, honestly, because I think a lot of people are getting like, oh shit, this is what they're talking about. Whenever I hear it or somebody chat about it, because there's ripple effects. It's obviously not just the person that's served, it's the family, it's everything. And before AJ asks his question, downrange, has this always been a term? Because I'll tell you what, it's hard not to drop it in like today we're saying we're going downrange with Jack Orley. Like it's just, we're throwing, has that been an insider? Is that what the SEALs have always called it? And it just assumes like that's battle time? Or are we just, did you create this? How do we?
I didn't create it. No, I didn't create it. You say a downrange, were you on a shooting range even? Like that, even at that level? Hey, go downrange so nobody shoots as you walk forward to the line to check your targets and that sort of a thing.
Got it.
But on deployment, downrange also means going to Iraq or Afghanistan or Somalia or something like that. So it's just one of those terms that you throw in there. That's kind of, I guess it's a little insider. I guess it's a little bit of insider.
Yeah.
But hey, when you mentioned the book sales earlier for this one right here, I was on an interview with Chris not too long ago, and I had to tell him, I'm like, dude, we changed this cover for you, man, and you know what? It didn't really help sales. I don't know what's going on. It's not doing much. So we had to reprint it, and we had to do this. And so that's Taylor Kitsch right there. And, so we printed a bunch of these titles, and I put them on a book right here, and it says now an original series starring Taylor Kitsch on Prime Video. So we had a bunch of these made. So I'm gonna have Taylor and Chris and I'll sign it, and we'll auction them for charity or something at some point.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. Go ahead, AJ.
You mentioned you're in the process of writing your 6th right now. What is that process like? And is it different now than it was, say, for your first one?
No, it's all been the same for whatever reason. And, I didn't read too many how-to books on writing. I read On Writing by Stephen King, The Successful Novelist by David Morrell, a couple books like that. But you can spend today, I think, an inordinate amount of time researching how to do something. And it's almost an excuse not to actually do it. Eventually, you have to commit and you have to do it. So there are a couple of these books that I read. Most of them were autobiographical, almost about these other authors. But then I dove right in because I had this foundation already built. And for me, it just made sense to start with a title. The title was jumped right out at me for this first one in particular. A theme, Revenge Without Constraint. A one-page executive summary, kind of like you'd read on the inside flap of a book.
Oh, I've read a bunch of those. I have read a bunch of those.
A bunch of these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yours
you don't
is
want to
great.
jump right in. You don't want to. I think you're 35, so you want to ease into these things. So just take it, just stick with the flaps for now.
Hey, 40th birthday, I'm fucking turning a page, Jack.
Nice. I like it. Awesome. I'm going to do what I can. For that transition. But then I write that one-page executive summary. And today when I do that, then I ask myself the question, hey, if someone was to read this one-page executive summary, this couple of paragraphs, would that be enough for them to want to commit 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, 15 hours, however long it's going to take them of their life that they're never going to get back to reading this? And then I read it, and if the answer is yes, then I read it again, and I say, is this one-page executive summary, is this enough for me to want to spend 2 years, essentially, year and a half of my life committed to? And if both of those answers are yes, then boom, I'm all in. And I take that couple of paragraphs, turn that into an outline, and then I take that outline and start turning that into the narrative. So right now on book 6, I'm on the narrative portion right now, turning that outline into book 6, which comes out next spring.
We can't wait to read it. Well, the book.
At least the jacket, yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing. I see a little horse soldier bourbon behind you. Shout out to the absolute stallions green berets that were on horseback going through Afghanistan, I do believe.
Yep, absolutely. Some of the first into Afghanistan after 9/11, Scotty Neal and Mark Nooch, and then came back and eventually started Horse Soldier. And what awesome guys! I had them on my podcast, heard their story, and just solid guys.
Danger Close podcast, also obviously #1 New York Times bestseller with The Terminalist. We're talking to Lieutenant Commander Jack Carr. Hey, this is delicious and like 100 proof, I think.
Oh yeah, gets the job done.
Diesel.
Yeah,
It's serious. Yeah, those guys aren't messing around over there.
No. You do boozing? You smoke? You do any ayahuasca? Anything like that?
No, mostly cigars, and whiskey. I'm sticking to that for now, but who knows? I'm not against it in the future, but that's where I am right now. It's my fuel essentially. My fuel for writing the books is that and Hooten Young and a couple other bottles I have over here.
Have you dabbled in anything like those extreme PTSD measures? Have you experienced that yourself after 20 years? I assume you've seen some shit, especially as a connoisseur of sharp objects. More specifically, the Winkler axes right over your left shoulder right there.
Bam.
Boom! Oh, wow. I mean, I seen Chris Pratt do some shit with that thing. I couldn't even fathom you, but have you had to do anything to combat your PTSD, or is this almost like the way you get through it, like your therapy almost through it all?
It was very therapeutic, and I didn't realize how personal it was going to be until even when I wrote that one-page executive summary and that outline. It didn't really occur how I know it was going to be accurate as far as sniper weapon systems and that sort of a thing, but I didn't realize how personal it was going to be until I actually started writing the narrative from the outline. And then like right away, it became evident how personal of a writing experience this was going to be. Just going back to experiences downrange and pulling out the feelings and emotions behind them and then applying them to a completely fictional narrative. So it did become very therapeutic, but I was also very lucky with the decisions that I made downrange for whatever reason. Because you can make the quote-unquote right decision at every turn downrange in combat and things can still go south. Just like the opposite. You can stumble around and you can make the quote-unquote wrong decision and things can turn out okay. So for whatever reason, I sleep very well at night. But a lot of my friends are dealing with some serious issues, and a lot of them have done that, done the ayahuasca stuff and done those experimental treatments. And most everyone that I talk to who have done that say that it was game-changing for them, that it was a life changer and a life saver in many cases.
Yeah, I think every time you say downrange, by the way, everybody in here gets fucking excited.
Do a shot. Everybody does a shot every time I say it. Maybe
that'd be awesome.
You say it.
Are we doing a shot of Horse Soldier bourbon together right now, or you got a long day ahead of you?
We sure do. We sure can. I do have a long day, but like I said,
my guy.
This is the fuel. Here.
Hey,
open this one.
Hey, thank you, man. Hey, thank you for everything you've done. Honestly, incredibly entertaining. Yep, there we go. Hey, cheers to you, Bob. And the boys got some questions. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Bud.
Hell yeah, smooth.
Solid right there.
Oh yeah,
nice.
Hey, let's go write a book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we gotta do more of these interviews. This is great. I think it's like 11:30 here in Mountain Time.
Hey, it's all right. You probably have what, 7, 8, 9 books done by midnight tonight with the way you go. I mean, it's impressive. Ty Schmidt, go ahead.
Jack, how often, if ever, when you're writing, like some of these like set pieces, will you have to go back and maybe say like, oh, this is actually too close to like a real life operation that I've been a part of? Like, does that ever happen? And also, has it changed the way you go about doing things now that it has become a series? Like, is it hard to kind of not write for the screen as opposed to just writing a novel?
Yeah, so it has changed how I write. You can see it in the last book and in The Blood, because I was writing that one as we're on set, and I'm seeing these different the scripts turn into something real life, and I'm seeing what actors are bringing to their characters. I'm seeing the things that they do in episode 1, 2, and 3 that impacts episode 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm seeing how the terrain impacts what we're doing visually. And then I'm also seeing these different conflations that I hadn't really written too much about in the book that we went heavy into in the series. And so that definitely impacted. And if you've seen the series and read In the Blood, my last one, then I think it's pretty evident which parts of that were impacted by the show and by screenwriting. So I'm learning a ton, and it's definitely impacting what I do as a writer, but it's also, I think, making me a better writer, and the book's better. So it was a great experience. I feel lucky that those guys all wanted me involved and really mentored me through this process. And now I have a few other projects out there in Hollywood going on, a couple other things happening. And if they don't come to fruition, it's still a great experience, and I can turn all of those ideas into future books anyway. So it's been fantastic.
You're crushing it, Lieutenant Commander. You should know that. And I'm a little boozed up right now, as you see, so I probably shouldn't be handling this. But hey, whenever, this...
Look at that.
Hey, huh?
Man, what is that? That looks pretty powerful. What is that thing? Is that even legal?
This was the same thing that Reese was carrying around the mountain when he put that bullet on top of the mountain, and old Cuzzy goes, "What does this mean?" And Nate Boyer goes, "He fucking could have killed us." Basically, that's the same gun.
It looks like that.
Yeah.
It actually looks like that.
Yeah,
yeah.
This is a pump action, obviously, instead of bolt action.
Obviously,
you and I both know the difference. It's a little old school. But did Chris Pratt have to go through like any sort of training with you guys to pass the eye test of being a fucking killer? And how was that process? Were you hands-on with that?
Yeah, so it was crazy COVID time, especially in LA, Hollywood in particular, California, obviously. So he couldn't go to like a boot camp type of a thing. So, but luckily he has a background in that already. He's pretty solid as far as all that stuff goes anyway, just being a guy. So he was good, solid foundation. And then we had those guys I mentioned earlier on set with him each and every day, essentially working with him on all this. And then Taylor, he had to learn to run the shotgun. So Chris and Taylor, they're running M4s and pistols and that sort of a thing. But then Taylor had to run this shotgun that's in his picture right here. And that took a ton of work on his part. And he's going through his house and he's doing these dummy rounds that he's using in the shotgun, clearing corners and getting good with it. And he really, because that's a different deal when you're running a shotgun, especially the way that Taylor did as Ben Edwards in the show. Look at that. Whoa. Yeah, solid move. Look at that. Whoa. Yeah.
I did not complete
like
putts. I did not complete putts.
I think if there's a season 2 and they're in negotiations about it right now, and I think there might be a spot for you, at least as a technical advisor, from what I see.
Yeah, I'll do some teaching. You know, you guys need me to do any teaching, I will certainly do that.
Be one of the dead guys.
Be one of the dead guys?
Yeah, why don't you shoot him? You could have someone shoot him.
I'm a good seller. I can sell pretty good.
If we need to throw somebody off a roof or through a window or something like that, like maybe. I think there might be a spot.
Hey, make that a high building because I'm only going to do that one time. So, like, let's go ahead and make that worth it. You know what I mean? And we don't have that big thing at the bottom.
Yeah, of course.
I always see it on MTV when they do Jackass and stuff. They sit and they land on that big thing. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Are you still stay up with your abilities just in case a motherfucker tries you? With these videos that hit the internet, Keanu Reeves obviously did this. We see you here in a full suit. Got to be 7,000 degrees. Plunk, 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 plunk. Headshot, headshot, headshot. About 35 dead metal bodies here in a matter of 15 to 20 seconds. How often do you do stuff like this? And is it just kind of like a jump shot? You always have it?
Well, luckily I have a pretty solid foundation there. I'd like to do it more, but right now I'm doing a lot of typing, a lot more typing than I'm actually doing training. But if I want to, from what I see here, though, I'm gonna have to get back on the range and get to work. But that one right there, I was going up to the Reagan Library to do a talk and a signing as part of a book tour, and Terran Tactical is at the base right there, and that's where Keanu Reeves did all his John Wick training. And so on the way in, that's why I have the suit on. So pulled in real quick. They had the rifles ready to go, pistols ready to go, and just hopped on, ran it once, and then jumped back in the car and headed up to do my signing and made it with like seconds to go to get on stage there. But figured if I was there, I couldn't not run that course because that's the training that I get these days is when I make it a part of work.
You fucking gangster. This dude shows up, suit on, sunglasses on, operator glasses on, like when you got killed in the car in the middle of the series there. You have your sunglasses on. Are the guns all ready? Yeah. All right, they ready to die? Yeah, all right. So somebody got a camera? Yeah, all right. Ting, 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 ting. Ping, ping, ping. All right, thanks, guys. Got to go to an autograph signing with fucking bullet shells on me, basically, still. You are a legend, sir. I hope you know that. It is awesome to see somebody that has done so much, not only for our country, but obviously for your family, for your community, giving back and having massive success. You are the man. Go ahead, Boston Connor.
Yeah, Jack, you just mentioned the second season kind of being in the works right now or maybe getting screened. Do you write some of these other stories with other people in mind, like with Chris Pratt? Like, do you have maybe a villain of Keanu Reeves, maybe Matthew McConaughey in one of these ones coming out?
So I do now, because now I know how helpful that is to the showrunner and to everybody involved for me to give them an idea of what I pictured as that character, just to give them a little bit of a baseline. So now I saw that last time. So now in this one, I have the whole season outlined already. I've sent that to the showrunner. He's given me notes, sent it back. We worked together on it, got it to a place that's pretty cool. We're excited about. But for each of those new characters that's being introduced in the second book, then I do have names attached, a couple of different options there, just so that they can start thinking casting wise. And sometimes they'll know right off the bat, hey, so-and-so is definitely a no-go. They're involved in X, Y, or Z right now, and they can't commit to this. But okay, this second and third choice, okay, possibility. Let's reach out to their agents. So it does help them a little bit. So I do have people in mind now, particularly when I'm writing the scripts for the series.
What was it like coming home after your first like long deployment? That's something I think it's in the show and different movies try to show how tough it is. Just getting back into normal life, it seems boring or weird. Like, what was that like your first deployment coming home?
Yeah, so the first actual combat deployment, I was always pretty good at flipping the switch on and off. But what I describe in the first book, James Reese coming home, and in the book it's a little different than the show in that it's a memory of a previous homecoming, and he comes home, and that's when the disaster has already hit. But in the book, we needed to introduce you to the viewer, to his wife, to his daughter, that sort of a thing. So it's a little bit different. But the way I wrote it in the book is exactly one of my homecomings. I just went back into that memory and wrote that out, and I had to draw the reader in, make it emotional, and then just tear their heart out. So, but there was only one time when I had a real hard time coming home, and that was height of the war, 2006. I'd been attached to a CIA covert action unit that also informs my writing in Baghdad, and it was amazing because I was the only military person attached to this special unit, and it was just awesome. So a little less oversight than I was used to with the military. So I was having an amazing time going out every night hitting these targets, and I didn't want to come home. So my whole team went home that was in other parts of Iraq, and I just stayed. And my commanding officer finally had to call and say, hey, get your ass on a plane. It's going to be waiting. C-17 is going to be waiting for you after tonight's op, and you're going to fly home, and you have to come home. And at the time, I had beard, long hair. I was just loving living in this, doing these missions. And I came home, and my mind was still in Iraq because it was it was just very busy, I guess is the best way to put it. I wanted to be there. And I came home, and finally my wife was like, hey, what's wrong with you? Snap out of it. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I better snap out of it. So when she said that, it was like, because you can't be there. You are physically in Virginia Beach. You can't physically be in Iraq. So get your mind right, get your mind home, flip that switch, deal with what you need to take care of on the home front, and then prep for that next deployment.
Be where your feet are, I think, is a classic thing. It's got to be difficult to do whenever you say, hey, honey, sorry about it. I was just able to do whatever the fuck I wanted. It's kind of like a dream military situation. I love you. Right. I wanted to come home, love being safe. But also, I was kind of the guy there for a while. Being able to,
I know there is a little bit of that probably, but it was interesting. My commanding officer, that guy that called me, he called me or texted me about 2 weeks ago. He said he'd seen the show and reached back out and went back through that memory with me of having to essentially order me and force me.
Hey, you remember when I had to force you fucking to go home? You remember when?
Yeah, and tell me to get a haircut before I got back, which I didn't do. Hey, that little rebellious streak maybe that comes out in the writing as well.
Well, you're a SEAL. There's a reason. You have to be, kind of an independent thinker, a free thinker, a very strong-minded person, I think, to be a SEAL. I don't know enough about it to be speaking the way I am, but I feel like those are probably some traits that keep people from ringing the bell while you're going through buds. And whenever a Navy SEAL writes something like this, and it's about a Navy SEAL, it's hard not to be like, oh, these are all real things while you're watching it. And then I learned a little bit more about how you have to get approval for the shit that you're writing from the government because there's a chance that, some of it might be too close to home or whatever. How big of a thing is that for you? And while we're watching it, should we assume that some of it's real, some of it probably taken a little bit out of context? So, how do you think we should watch it for those of us that can't wait for season 2?
Yeah, so it's really the mindset that I was going after. It's a fictional narrative. Of course, I draw from the church hearings in the mid-'70s that really investigated some overreach by certain institutions of the U.S. government, like the CIA. So I went back into history to study that and then project that forward into modern times. But all the situations are completely made up. But it's really the mindset of a warrior that I was going after. I wanted somebody, and Chris and Antoine and the showrunner, they wanted the same thing. They wanted that person who has been in Iraq or Afghanistan or somewhere else around the world over the last 20 years to be able to crack a beer, sit on that couch, turn this thing on, and say, hey, these guys made a show for me. They got this warrior mindset right and didn't make it too Hollywood and made something that spoke just to me. And so that's really what we were trying to accomplish there. And I think that 95% Rotten Tomatoes rating really says we got close. We did get close. But really it was the mindset of a warrior. And as far as those redactions go, so the first book I started writing when I was still during my last year in the military, when my job became to get out of this gigantic bureaucracy. So I had a lot of standing in line to do at dental and medical and get read out of secret programs and turn in gear and that sort of a thing. But because it's a gigantic bureaucracy, you have to stand in line first to make your appointment, to then come back and stand in line again, to then go do these things. Yeah. So I had some time on my hands there. So I'm writing this book during that time frame, and it was so close to my time in uniform that I thought, okay, I should probably submit this thing, and my lawyer thought the same thing. So I submitted it to the Department of Defense Office of Pre-Publication and Security Review, and that first book, they took about 9 sentences out, and which I thought was pretty good, and they got it back 45 days. They advertised 30 days, but 45 was okay. So second one, I did the same thing. I submit that one, and 1 month passes, 2 month passes, 3, 4, 5, 6, creeping up on 7. We have to push the publication date a few months to the right, and they took out 54. But by this point, I can hire some additional attorneys who can now go in and tie each one of these government redactions to a publicly available government document. So not something that's in someone else's book or on Wikipedia or Time Magazine or something, but that anyone in the world can download from a U.S. government website. And so we tied all 54 of those to publicly available documents from the government, and they let me win on 37. So you can now take the paperback and the hardcover, and you can compare what they thought was so secret. And one of those things they thought was so secret was something I made up. And I made up a CIA black site in Morocco, because I'd been to Morocco before my time in the military. I love Morocco. I could describe it. I remember being in Marrakesh and the sights and the sounds. And so I thought it made sense geographically for the story. So they took out any reference to Morocco, Moorish architecture, Atlas Mountains. They blacked out all of that. But then I won it on appeal. So what does that tell me? And anyone else reading it who decides to compare, they say we probably have a CIA black site in Morocco. I didn't know about it. But they could have just left it alone.
Yeah.
So for the third one, I did a Savage Son. I submitted that one. They took out, I forget how many sentences, and I went to appeal again. And this time they told me that they weren't going to let me appeal. So for me, that kind of tells me, hey, quit bothering us with this fiction stuff, kid. We have serious things going on here in the United States government that we need to attend to. So now going forward, I don't submit anymore.
I've been to Morocco. I got pickpocketed by a kid on the streets of Morocco while playing soccer with the locals. I didn't see a CIA agent come help me out at all. Come on.
Yeah.
Those motherfuckers are there, sounds like.
They might have just been watching.
Oh, look at the big, fat, dumb white right there, getting all the euros taken from him. Last question here from one of the boys. We appreciate you so much, Lieutenant Commander. Go ahead, Tone.
Commander, I have a problem where when I watch a show, I get super into the show. I've already bought and purchased a new biometric safe because of the show. I purchased a 1911. Thank you. Love you, Boozer.
He's wearing that cowboy hat right now because he watched
Yellowstone.
So he became a cowboy after watching Yellowstone. He's not a cowboy by trade. He's from Pittsburgh naturally. He watched Yellowstone, did that. He will soon be James Reese, which is awesome. Go ahead, Tom.
Have you met anyone at these book signings who are like too into your books, and you've thought about doing like a fan camp where we could come out for a week, maybe get some training from you guys, and you can make $1 billion?
Actually, interesting on both those fronts. There are some very engaged fans out there, which is wonderful. And people bring me at book signings. Usually at book signings, the majority of people that show up at an independent bookstore, they told me about 90% female. They try to really figure out how to get males to come to these things. Mine's the exact opposite. It's about 90% male, 10% female. And they bring things to independent bookstores like tomahawks.
Hey, we got the same deal. We got the same deal, Lieutenant Commander. Yeah, same deal.
There it is. They bring magazines for M4s, ARs to sign. And bookstores aren't really used to this. People are pulling out knives, showing me all this stuff. They're bringing all the gifts. A lot of people bring whiskey, which is awesome.
Right.
So my bags, I have an empty bag now that I carry on book tour that just gets filled with whiskey and all these things as I go along. But man, I could not be more thankful for those type of fans. People who took a risk on me as a new author and then told a friend, because that's how all this happened. Is somebody took a risk on me, told a friend. It was all grassroots. Wasn't coming from politics. Wasn't coming from anything that gave me any sort of a platform. It all started at zero. So it's really because of the reader that made all this happen.
I love the thought of you signing at Barnes & Noble and somebody working there taking their mask off being like, is that a gun?
Yeah.
Why is there a gun in the bookstore?
That happens.
It's like, well, COVID's going to kill you for sure, but these guns, let's go ahead and get crazy about it. Last question from me, Lieutenant Commander. You hear about any Navy SEAL that ever tells any story being hated by other Navy SEALs, right? Like, hey, that's not what the SEALs do. The SEALs do not have any success outside of fucking killing people for the United States of America. It's almost like a code, I feel like, and I respect and appreciate the shit out of it. Have you seen any backlash from the SEAL community? Have you got support, I assume, from the SEAL community? And is that something you have to think about every single time you write anything, basically, at this point?
Yeah, no, I didn't really want to spend my time thinking too much about that because that's bandwidth that's not going into making the book the best it can possibly be. There is a lot of that, mostly with the nonfiction side of the house. So people talking about a mission or their time in uniform, and there is that goes along. There are people in that don't really like that.
Why is that?
You know.
Hey, why is that? Just because, like, hey, we signed up not to tell people what we did. That's why we're SEALs.
Yeah, it's kind of iffy. It's kind of a strange thing because those of us who grew up in the 80s, we read books about special operations in general or watched movies about this, and it inspired us. I'd much rather have my kids today reading a book about what somebody did downrange in Iraq or Afghanistan as a SEAL, as a Marine sniper, as whatever else, than a book about the Kardashians or something like that. I think today in particular, there's so many inputs that kids need heroes, and it's important for those people to talk about their experience. It's therapeutic for them, it can be therapeutic for others, and it can inspire another generation. So I understand the importance of those. But you're right, in the SEAL community, there is this quiet professional code-ish type of a thing. But just like anything else, there's going to be good ones that come out. There are going to be horrible ones that come out. It's very subjective. But in my case, I'm writing fiction, and so I think I got a bit of a pass on that sort of a thing. The military in general is not very excited to help out with the show, so they didn't. I mean, we do blow an admiral up in his office and that sort of thing, so it's not flattering. But the Marines wanted to do it. The Marines were all excited to give us some of their assets, and we were going to use it was going to be great, but then the Navy found out and told them no. So we didn't have any support, which is great. I like that because if you go back to the Caine Mutiny back in the day, the movie with Humphrey Bogart, the Navy was involved in that, and they had all these stipulations attached to it. And over time, they continued to do that sort of thing with different films and projects. But I like being on my own. I liked us being on our own as a production, just without any of those strings attached from the military. So I think that was the way to go anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you served 20 years, so some fuck in a suit should say that they won't help you. I mean, that's great. Go ahead, AJ, your last question. I appreciate how professional you are with it all and just understanding the reality of the situation. But you would think that the military would be fucking pumped that one of the hottest authors on earth, one of the biggest show creators on earth, is a former SEAL writing about stuff that people need to learn about. But instead, classic suits, just being like, nope, this guy fucking ass. Is he making money without us? Yep, fuck him. AJ, your last question for Lieutenant Commander Jack Carr.
Yeah, do you guys ever go back and talk with your old buds, like the old guys? Like Pat and I played in the NFL, so we can sit there and talk about how hard our practices were back in the day and these new rules and everything. Do you ever go back and watch training and say, "Oh, this is easy now. Anyone can do this"? Like, do you guys have that weird thing that old guys like to do?
Yeah, we did even before the advent of social media, even before I was out, when you were a brand new guy in the SEAL teams in the late 90s, early 2000s. Of course, the people that were already in, their class was the last hardest class. So that's always the running joke, is your class is always the last hardest one. But when I turned that page from the military, I knew guys that were still in, obviously, but they have a mission to do, and we picked up and we made a psychological and physical break with the military, left San Diego, California, moved up to the mountains here in Utah, and so I kind of turned that page. But now people are starting to reach out. As a lot of those guys get out, they'll reach out. A lot of people who have been out for a long time continue to text or call or ask for advice or that sort of a thing. And obviously, I always pick up and try to help as many people as I possibly can. But of course, that always comes up, changes in training and that sort of a thing. But when you have this thing called Hell Week that's been around for the longest time, and there's no way you could today start SEAL training and just walk into an admiral's office with an idea to have this 6 months training period where a week we're going to keep these guys awake. They're going to be on the verge of hypothermia. A couple guys might die every now and again, but we're going to get some real guys. We're going to get guys with grit out the other side of this program. You couldn't brief that today. No one would do that. The only reason it exists is because it's a legacy program. And it's really hard to make that part easier, especially Hell Week, when you're going to be up from Sunday morning through Friday afternoon, and you're going to be cold, tired, hungry, wet, sand everywhere. And it's going to be very easy for you to quit because there's going to be this bell that's not in front of the first phase office, that's in the trailer hitch of a truck that you can see for that entire week. And all you have to do is go ring it 3 times and you can be warm again. So it's kind of hard to make that part easier. So unless they get rid of that completely, I think we'll still get the same type of attrition, because what you're doing is really you're looking for that person with grit. And you're looking for a few other things. You're looking for physical courage and moral courage, and you're looking for team ability, which isn't really a word, but it's what we're looking for, someone who works well with others in these kind of environments. But it's hard to make that any easier when you keep somebody up for a week and make them so cold, and also make it very easy to self-select out of the program. So I think we're still getting people on the other side that have that grit that we're looking for.
Do you still every once in a while just take a helicopter out to the ocean, jump out, and just start swimming around and be like, all right, I'll get home now? You know, do you do anything?
No, I feel like it was a good 20-year run. And now I've turned that page, and now I'm going to try to write the best thrillers I possibly can and get better with each and every one. That's the goal. But every now and again I'll get out there and throw some rounds downrange or do a workout. And but nothing has ever made me say, you know what, I should go back in. That torch has been passed to this next generation, and there's a lot of experience out there. A lot of people that did some amazing things in Iraq and Afghanistan over the last 20 years that are passing on those lessons to the next generation, just like the Vietnam generation passed it on to mine. So I think back on that and think of the guys that are still in passing on those lessons, and that keeps me warm. That makes me feel good about where we are as an institution.
Yeah, me too. By the way, hearing you talk about how if somebody's going to get through Hell Week, they're going to be a dog. We just need to remember that. If the SEALs today still had to go through the same shit that the SEALs had to go through 20 years ago. So that gives us all hope, I think. Hell yeah. Hey, Lieutenant Commander, I appreciate you so much, man. I assume you're going to knock out this next book in about 5-10 minutes and then have another one and everything like that. Keep crushing it.
My publisher would like 5-10 minutes, but it might take an extra half hour. We'll see.
Well, we crashed, I think, the Horse Soldier Bourbon website already.
Nice.
So I don't know if you're going to be able to get any more up there to Utah in the next couple of days or so. But we appreciate the hell out of you. Thank you so much for what you've done for our country and for all of our entertainment lives.
Oh, man, thank you so much for having me on. Thanks for the support. And luckily, I have that Horse Soldier stockpiled over here in boxes in the corner. So I'll be good for at least a few days.
All right, respect. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Commander Jack Carr. Thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah, sweet.
He's great. Smart dude.
Yeah, he's so smart. I mean, the things he was saying so fast, and I guess he's an author, so we should understand that he's good with his words, and we saw the whole thing. He was saying so many very coherent statements very quickly. Boom, 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 about so much. It's like, oh, that guy's got a good brain right there. Yeah. That's the type of brain that we love. And he's also got grit. We heard about Hell Week. He's got talent. And God damn it, I appreciate the hell out of boom this particular show, because I would never known that guy existed.
Yeah.
No.
And then if I didn't know that guy existed, I would have known that the modern Navy SEALs still dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Because even though the world's getting soft and it appears as if the TikTok generation is taking over, and if somebody was to come into America and say, hey, this is ours now, which is a possibility, by the way, we're seeing it overseas, everybody doesn't want to kind of look in that, it made me wonder, like, oh, I'm 35 years old. With this next generation, am I going to have to be the guy that's going to have to go back in there if something was to take place? Jack Carr's like, don't you worry about it, dude. They're
Good
still
hands.
not sleeping
Still
for
got the
5 days. We got some fucking dogs out there. And I love that. I can't thank him enough for joining us, and thank you for his work. He's in the middle of book 6 right now.
Very sweet.
Do you think he's just getting right?
Oh,
Said
yeah.
it comes out, what, in the fall?
Fall or spring? I forget what it was.
That was next spring.
Yeah,
Next spring.
All right, we're back in 4 minutes with hour 3. Man, this show has flown by.
Yeah.
We'll have Bakhtiari at 2:15 Eastern Standard Time. Please send at Jack Carr USA, I believe is his Twitter.
Yes.
Thank you for stopping by. Horse Soldier Bourbon, you're supporting a great group of dudes. Dudes that hopped on horses, went into Afghanistan. The first crew deployed into Afghanistan after 9/11. Just kind of, hey, figure it out. And now they're riding horses all of a sudden. Didn't even know how to ride horses, most of them. Just fucking went in there and did it. The movie obviously showcases that. We got a chance to chat with them right here. There's some fucking dogs.